as I've said many times, we left the stables as normal, tacked up to go down into the paddock, and that would be the horse that we would then normally put the jockey on, and they would go out. The Grand National slightly different because there's a parade, so they would have had the parade, then they would have gone and looked at the first fence. But once, just about before the jockeys came out, the horses were told to go back to the stables. So we went back to the stables. We didn't know what was going on. We took the saddle off, washed the horse down. It was a very warm day, and then just I went round the corner, and so was suddenly told that we had to get back into the paddock. So we still had to resaddle the horse again, and got him back to the paddock. And as we were going to the paddock, you could see horses actually coming out of the paddock, going down to the start. There was no parade, and the parade is actually probably just a time for jockeys and horses to actually just sort of reassess the whole situation. Jockeys just to have a moment to themselves, to get a plan in their head. And for the horses are just led, and usually in the parade, most of the horses look very relaxed. This didn't happen. They were straight out onto the course, cantered down to the start, which obviously at Aintree isn't very far away. And then they all hurried to get their girths done up, and they were all just milling around. Nobody quite knew what was going to happen. They were called in to line, and then they were turned. No, they weren't ready to go, so they had to go back, and then they were called in again, and that's when obviously the race started. And I think there's a number of people have said, there was a number of horses looking very agitated, or not very agitated, but just jig-jogging away, pulling more than they would normally do, and obviously jockeys and officials were obviously very, very uptight as well. It's a huge occasion, the Grand National, and you're always trying to keep everything as calm as possible as a trainer, to keep everything as calm, and that got taken out of our control.
The group of protesters, Animal Rising, said that their intention, of course, was to stop any deaths. They have stated as well, Sandy, that they'd welcome talks with you. Is that a discussion that you are looking to have?
Let's be clear, Animal Rising did not use this. This was nothing about horse welfare. They got 9 people on the course. How did they think 9 people were going to stop, this huge occasion with all the security that was in place? They were only there to get themselves on telly, and they've done that. They've made a huge name for themselves. Animal Rising are not actually about animal welfare. If you go onto their website, they're about food from plant-based feed. Obviously animal welfare comes into that. But they were just using the Grand National as a platform to get noticed. And there already are a lot of people, the RSPCA and the World Horse Organization are in contact with the British Horse Racing Authority. And these are the channels to go through. The British Horse Racing Authority speak continually with these two organisations about horse welfare. The last thing we want is to lose horses on the racecourse. And the numbers have dropped hugely in the last 5 or 6 years. But obviously we're doing everything we can to get the numbers even further down. But no, I wouldn't want to speak to them, because I don't really think that they have a clue what they're talking about. I've been on twice, 2 interviews this morning, and the 2 people on really had no idea about animal welfare. And one of them was asked, right, you want to stop racing, what are you going to do with the 50,000 horses that are in racing? And he hadn't a clue. He wouldn't even probably know that was the number that was talking about. So no, I wouldn't want to speak to them. They need to go and speak to the right people, the RSPCA and other bodies, and they can speak. I'm sure the BHA would be delighted to speak to them and put their case. But they weren't using this. They were using the animal welfare, but that wasn't really. They were just wanting to get a name for themselves.
OK, yeah, you mentioned the RSPCA there, Sandy. We will hear from them shortly here on Sky Sports News. Let's take the wider issue of animal welfare, because of course you don't want to see any horses injured or having to be put down as well. Is it something that is continuously under review in the sport of horse racing, with further safety measures being put or being considered every year?
Not even every year. I mean, it's month by month, week by week. But obviously the Grand National, yes, it's year by year. And, you know, there's obviously talk about, you know, what might happen next year. You know, will there be a reduced number of runners? Will they make the start closer to the first fence? All these things obviously are coming under discussion and will be discussed. And we can only hope that next year we don't have any of these idiots trying to stop the race and upsetting the horses. And, you know, we have a race that goes without incident. You know, the figures show that since the fences were realigned 9 years ago, that there's an average of 2 fallers at the first and second fence every year. This year there was 8. You know, Hill 16 has jumped these fences. He's jumped about 50 of these fences. You know, there was no reason for him to misjudge that first fence as badly as he did. And as far as I'm concerned, it was all down to everybody getting unsettled: horses, jockeys, starters, officials, because of these so-called animal rights people. And in actual fact, you know, they have actually not thought this through, and you know, they're quite happy also to go and block roads and stop ambulances. You know, they just think about themselves. They don't actually think about the bigger picture.